not all things come down to numbers. Numbers can only measure what has happened. They cannot measure the collective feelings and emotional drivers that actually produce sales. Welcome to the Maven Marketing Podcast. Today is Maven Monday. I'm your host, Brandon Welch, and I am here with Caleb, the migraine-conquering AG.
Oh, wow. I feel so special.
He's back. We almost didn't get this episode recorded, but he has told his migraines where to go.
Making the Maven Mondays.
All these Maven Mondays were giving him a headache. This is the place where we answer your real-life marketing questions so you can grow your business, eliminate waste in advertising, and achieve the big dream.
The big dream.
Last week, we did an episode on creating strategy for your company. We talked about commitment, consistency, coachability. We talked about the things that you could get together with your team to get everybody on the same sheet of music. And we talked about how to dream big and think in terms of 1, 3, and 5 year vision, values, vows, and things that drive your company. And we've had a number of people say that's awesome, that's helpful for mindset stuff, but how does this actually apply to advertising and marketing and all the things that we are supposed to be good at?
Yeah.
So
stay in your lane, people. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna. It all starts with that stuff.
It's company growth, and that's what we're all about.
Company growth starts there. Starts with very strong vision, values, vows. I would highly encourage you to go back and listen to last week's episode. Very practical. We've got another very practical episode for you today because you guys asked, how do I create my marketing budgets? How do I think about growth as it relates to what I'm spending? And today, we are going to show you the ropes.
I feel like there should be a rope pun here.
A rope pun. I'm afraid not. Okay, Mr. Caleb.
Yes.
We have broken this down into 5 parts again. 5 is the theme for December. Or July. If you're listening to this in July, 5 is the theme for July.
Could be any time.
But we talked about building that strategic marketing plan to set the direction. We're going to apply that to, we're going to start by talking about revenue goals. That's actually one of the more standard things inside of a strategic marketing plan is how much are we going to grow? And when it comes time to say, well, what budget should I have? We have some really helpful formulas that we've used over the years. And when we're actually setting budgets for clients, whether they're, trying to go from 80 to 100 million or from 5 to 10 million, we have some ways to think about that and break that down.
Yeah.
And so stay tuned for that. But go over the next, all 5 points. We've got cost of customer new acquisition. We're going to assess the headwinds, which we're going to call art versus science. We're going to talk about making a reasonable plan. We're going to talk about applying it to your budget in different medias. And then we're going to talk about efficiency and long-term setting yourself up for sort of the stock market, the IRA of business growth.
Yeah. And so going back, we're going to start with the cost of new customer acquisition. And we're going to make a case study, a fake company that actually we've taken. These are actually almost real numbers. We've just rounded them out a little bit.
Yeah.
These are real numbers from clients that we have, that we work with. And we just rounded them for easy math because we are going to do some math today together. Hope you brought your brain. You're driving to work right now, and you said, I really wanted to do math this morning.
Really don't want to do some math. So instead of 10.2 million, we might round it down to 10 million for some of these goals and try to keep it as round numbers as possible. But these are from a real client.
Yes. So this client says that their revenue goal is $10 million in 2024 next year. They did $9 million last year.
Okay. Sounds like a growth of about $1 million.
$1 million.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the cost of new customer acquisition. And right here, most people just stop and say, I did 9. Sounds good to do 10. And that is honestly, like the first step that revenue growth and conversations about strategy and marketing budget and how to apply the different things we're going to talk about here gets off track because we just think that growth is growth. And what is true for every business is that at least to some degree, you have existing business, you have referral business, and then you have new business. And actually what most business owners fail to realize is that new business is really expensive. Existing in a referral business is not expensive at all. You've actually realized that, and you've actually realized that through all of your marketing efforts to whatever degree from years and years past.
Yeah.
So unless you are literally a brand new business, January first,
Mm-hmm.
you have some existing and referral force to your business. So this example we're going to talk about happens to be one, and we actually chose kind of I would say the harder of the two options. This is going to be this is going to be a business that has a really long buying cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore every year they have to get a big percentage of their revenue has to come from new customers because people don't buy in this business.
We're talking 20 to 30 years for this product.
Yep. This is actually, I'll just say this is a home improvement based business. So think of roofing, siding, windows, HVAC units, things that people don't buy very often at all. And when they do, they're usually big ticket items.
Yep.
So break this down. If we were to look at this client, we were to say, okay, cool, you want to grow $1 million next year.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of your business is coming from new business versus existing? Because I, as the marketing guy, don't feel right taking credit for stuff that's already happened or that's already going to happen.
Yeah.
And you should not give credit to marketing for stuff that's already going to happen. And we'll get to a grand conclusion here in a second. But as you're thinking about customer acquisition, you shouldn't have to generally pay twice for customers that you already have.
Yeah.
So don't assign a marketing budget to them. Just continue doing the things that hopefully exist in your vision, values, and vows that make them want to come back to you. But this example, take us through this example, actually.
Yeah. So you want me to walk through how much will come from? So we are assuming that the percentage of existing and repeat customers will be 10%. So $1 million.
Yep. So out of his $10 million, $1 million is coming from, in this case, it might be a builder or a contractor that uses his service often. Or he happens to know that because he's been in business for quite a while, there's a family or two a month that are going to buy a vacation home or buy a new home that they need a roof replaced and they like him, so they go back to him, right?
Yep. You got property investors or something. They're coming and doing work. Okay. And then another 10% we're going to say is going to come from referrals.
So
we did a good job.
Yep.
You told your friends about us.
Yep. My mom needs a good, honest company. You did good, honest service for me. I referred him. Okay. This is, hopefully you have a CRM that kind of allows this to be a little more exact, but guys, just use your take your last 10 customers you can think of and just say, out of those, how many would I have gotten no matter what? How many probably referred me because I did a good job? And then how many were truly new and they found me via some other force?
Yeah. And if you're doing the math at home, we're aiming for 10 million. We just found $2 million in existing customers and referral customers. That means we have $8 million
in new customers.
80% of our customer base next year will need to be from new customers.
Yeah. Now, some of you in shorter buying categories that are listening, I'm talking to my retail folks. I'm talking to my restaurants. I'm talking to my hospitality-based businesses.
Yep.
Anything that's more commoditized.
Most medical, you're getting appointments yearly,
probably,
depending on what it is.
Yeah. So you might have 80% of this might be flip-flopped. You might have 80% of your revenue as repeat patients or whatever. And the takeaway there is going to be that the more percentage of brand new customers that you need, the higher your marketing budget is going to have to be. Everybody always wants to ask, well, what should a small business be spending on advertising? And it's like, it depends. It depends. And if somebody doesn't stop to tell you it depends, I hate the caveat and the disclaimer, but the really quick divider there is, how long does it take a customer to come around to buying business from you? Because today, there is a way, way, way smaller percentage, like a lot smaller percentage of people looking for a roof or a casket or a medical service or some, HVAC unit they haven't replaced in 30 years. There's a way smaller percentage of humanity in that mode versus people buying cheeseburgers or even automobiles or, shopping for.
Mid-range might be real estate, housing. That's in like the 5 to 7 year range.
Exactly. So,
that would be kind of somewhere in the middle, but you see a lot of that.
So if you're on this higher end where a big percentage, I'm talking 70+% of your revenue this year is going to have to come from new customers, generally you're in that double-digit marketing budget percentage because you have to get them and you have to earn them. And we're going to break that down in a little bit. And I'll say another caveat, the faster you want to grow, and we're going to talk about speed here in just a little bit, but the faster you want to grow, the more money you will need in a shorter window of time. But we're going to start by breaking down and saying, what's my actual growth mean? which leads us to what percentage am I going to have to get a brand new customers? Therefore, what percentage of that result is going to come from marketing or some sort of sales activity? Anything to add to that?
No, I think we're good.
Cool. So the first question we need to ask is, how many new customers do you need to get the kind of revenue you want? In this case, $8 million, okay? It's $10 million goal, $2 million of it's already made, but $8 million, how many customers is that?
Yep.
Well, you're going to have to find what a customer's worth.
Yeah.
Is a customer $1,000, or is it, in this case, it's actually $10,000, right?
Yeah.
So I take my, a good way to figure this is just to take all of your revenue from last year and divide it by the number of unique customers you had.
Yeah.
So this gentleman's business here, $9 million was his revenue last year. He had 900 customers. Obviously, we've rounded these to make them easy, but it was actually really close, right? So if you do that math, it's easy to find $10,000 or roundabout is his average customer value. Okay.
Yep.
If you're doing this on a spreadsheet, which by the way, we'll link to a spreadsheet you can use to create this for yourself. If you're doing this on a spreadsheet, it'll break it down to, $9,872.32. And that's just unique and more precise for your business. But for sake of this answer,
yep,
$10,000 per customer or roundabout there, right?
That was last year's cost or average value of a customer.
Yes. Now, there's a nerdy step we're skipping in here, and your average value per customer will probably go up just a little bit based on price increases and inflation. So if you're like, my average customer last year was $10,000, but just by way of material increases or salaries or inflation or taxes or whatever you've got to have just to maintain, you're going to maybe pad that number up a little bit.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. So we know that a customer's worth to us in this scenario $10,000. So I have $8 million I got to make up. How many customers is that, Caleb?
Well, you divide the 10,000 into that 8 million.
Yep.
And you're going to find that you need 800 new customers to make up.
800 brand new customers.
Yep.
Awesome.
To get that 8 million.
Cool. Hope everybody's with me. We're assigning real numbers, so we're not just making up arbitrary percentages or looking at some trade magazine and saying, "Well, all my industry spend 6% on marketing, so I better too." No, this needs to be in line with your goals and how you feel like you have an appetite or an ambition to grow, and divide it from there. So we know what it costs, we know what an average customer is worth to us. Now we ask, what did it cost me to earn a customer in recent history? I would encourage you to do this in somewhere of a 1 to 5 year window to level it out. If you're a brand new business, this is harder. And if you're a brand new business, it probably costs you more to get a new customer.
Yeah.
But if you're, a 10, 15, 20-year-old business, you can probably go off last year or whatever the most reasonable set of, time period is for you to base off. But in this case, this particular business had about a $600,000 marketing budget. So what we're going to do is take the marketing budget and we're going to divide it into the number of new customers we had
last year.
Okay.
Yep.
So keyword being new customers. Okay. Because we knew that this business had roughly that, 20% repeat and referral.
Yep.
Only 700 or so of their customers were new. And you could look at that various different ways. If you're using QuickBooks or some other accounting software, you can run reports of new customers within a certain period of time. You can dead reckon it. You don't have to be down to the penny accurate. Matter of fact, I think you're probably wasting energy if you're trying to make this down to the penny. But you're getting a range, right?
Yeah.
So we spent $600,000 last year, and we got 700 new customers. And if I did the math, that comes right about around to $850 I spent for a new customer.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yep.
So, if all of the things are the same, if there's no big changes in market or anything like that, or economy, or advertising platforms, I can expect basically this year, if I want to earn that amount of new customers, I'm going to at least have to spend $850 a customer, unless something else changes, right? Unless I get better at something, which we'll talk about in a moment. Cool. So I know the average value of a customer. I know what it cost me on average to earn a new customer last year. Now, to get my marketing budget, I'm just going to take the amount of new customers I need, multiplied times the amount of dollars I generally have to spend to get a new customer. And I come up with the $680,000 marketing budget on the whole.
To be clear, that was the 800 new customers you needed to make
Mhm.
essentially $8 million times $850 per customer that we saw was our cost of
Yes.
acquisition last year.
Yes.
And that gives us $680,000
$680,000.
for a marketing budget for 2024.
So we know the big number. We know
Mhm.
the big general trend. We know what marketing has had to be as a percentage of our growth in recent history to apply to the next level of growth we want to reach. Keep in mind, when you have a high rate of repeating customers, I'm talking about my retail folks that have, smaller dollar values per like customer per transaction, but they come back multiple times a year,
Yeah.
or maybe even multiple times in the next 3 or 4 years.
Or if it's subscription or retained, you're even better
Yes.
off then,
Yes.
for
Exactly.
sure. Yeah.
So try to guess a lifetime value of a customer
Yes.
versus just saying, "Oh my gosh, I spent $850 to get a $400 sale." Today that doesn't make sense, but if I spent $800 to get a $400 sale that then turned into $6,000 in repeat sales.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Alec, our buddy that has all the music stores.
Yeah. Rentals.
Yeah, rentals but also the mom that buys a guitar today, that's another, it might be $400, but by the end of the year, I promise you it's $1,200 by the cases and the strings and the toys that they need. Triangulate that into your expectations. But the takeaway is, what am I having to pay to get a customer, in a certain period of time? Cool. So all that was part of the first section, which is cost of new customer acquisition. When you're setting budgets, when you're thinking about, am I making reasonable goals? And how do I start to think about chipping away at those? What is the amount of effort it takes per customer to get that?
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, what should my effort expectation be? Because I hate to say this, there's a lot of smart people, a lot of people I know, trust, and respect that have built awesome businesses, but they don't stop to go. They just think, well, when I was, first 5 years of business, I could just say, well, let's go get 3 million, and then it happened. And there's a point where the market doesn't allow you to do that in your competition space, and the bigger your piece of pie, the harder and more strategic you have to get at knocking that down. So keep that in mind. Ask yourself, what's reasonable?
Yeah.
Second part, assessing the headwinds. What we just talked about a minute ago was pretty scientific.
Yeah.
Right? This is a little more artistic.
Okay.
This is a little more based on intuition, a little bit of dead reckoning, a little bit of speculation, and then I'll just call a little bit of common sense. So those numbers only work in a truly linear, reliable fashion down to the penny if every single force in the world is the same.
Yeah.
And what do we know about the world?
It's always changing.
It's always changing.
Something's changing.
The only constant is change.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's not a vacuum. There's not just this, tight mathematical equation.
Yeah.
And this is probably where you need to go hit pause, grab your CPA, or your, accountant, or whoever is your financial logical brain in the organization, and say, okay, I love you. I rely on your spreadsheets to make good decisions, but I need you to know that not all things come down to numbers. Numbers can only measure what has happened. They cannot measure the collective feelings and emotional drivers that actually produce sales. Let me say that again. Numbers cannot predict emotional behaviors. So we're going to talk about the art versus science, assessing the headwinds. And every time this happened to me this week, an accountant leaned in and goes, so what's the ROI going to be? And I'm like, I'm so glad you asked that, because it's an important question to ask, but it's a relationship to a number of factors, not a spreadsheet. If it were a spreadsheet, anybody on planet Earth could manage the woes of business, but they can't, and they can't. Okay.
Yep.
So the things you need to be assessing to some degree. What is your competitive force? Are you the only shop in town doing this to the aggression level that you are? Or do you have some other really quality committed competitors that are putting stress and putting extra force on this customer space? I think a lot of marketers like to pound their chests being big and bad, saying, look what we did, when all they did was, put the pizza restaurant in the part of town where there was not a pizza restaurant,
Mhm.
right? And everybody's going to flock to that because it's pizza, even if it's not good, right?
Yeah.
So how do you assess your competitors' appetite and aggression in your category?
Mhm.
I will say right now, I'm pretty excited for a lot of our clients because they are courageous, they are focused, they are pushing through and doubling down while a lot of their competitors are tucking their tail because they spend too much time watching news outlets that try to make them scared about making any decision.
Mhm.
And that's not a political statement. That's just a condition of humanity
Yeah.
that people get scared and they tuck their tail.
Fear is paralyzing.
Fear is paralyzing, and courage and visionaries. And I just spent 2 weeks in Boston and Washington, D.C., looking at the stories of men who made courageous decisions despite incredible odds against them and incredible uncertainties. And that's why their names are on buildings and their statues made out of them, right?
Mhm.
So that's a philosophical statement, but is your competitive force better, worse, about the same? And if it's about the same, cool. You don't have to sort of adjust your expectations or your aggressive level. What is the general market doing in demand for your product? Automobiles is a great example of a product that has been in high demand for the last 2 or 3 years, and it is rapidly sinking in demand
Mhm.
as Americans have inflated grocery prices. They have just a sobering reality now that we're finally out of pandemic honeymoon mode,
Mhm.
and they're going, I'm holding on to my automobile, and therefore, a little longer, and therefore, it's a lot easier to come by a car at a reasonable price now than it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And they're not flying off the lot,
Lots.
not the shelf. So think about that. Economy is a factor. I'm not trying to tell you to be scared, but I'm telling you to go, are we going to have to work harder to get the same result? I know several categories that the overall demand was down 20 to 30%, and some of our clients only grew 4 or 5%.
Mhm.
And they're going, wow, I'm used to growing 30%. And I'm like, you did. You did, because most of your competitors in your industry and the manufacturers and everybody are down, but you
Yeah.
actually gained market share when you
Yeah.
to hold ground in a shrinking market is to gain market share. More importantly, if you hold on to that, when it comes back up, your ship will rise with that ocean.
Mhm.
Here's another big one. This is something you should ask a skilled consultant, not a media salesperson per se, but a skilled consultant that can give you the ins and outs. Are the advertising platforms making it harder to get the same result? I will tell you definitively, Google and Facebook both, via regulation that's happened to them, via the lack of targeting, via the way they've had to cool off and essentially dumb down some of their algorithms that were a little too creepy and scary,
Mhm.
and via way of their shareholders still wanting that big, fat advertising revenue, they are charging more for less results,
Yeah.
definitively.
Yep.
So what used to be true 2 or 3 years ago, we could put $50 into Google and get a customer opportunity for a client. That same opportunity, while we've gotten better and while the marketing has gotten better, while the business has actually grown in maturity, might cost $75 now.
Mhm.
And that's just a reality. Doesn't mean you can't find wins. Doesn't mean that your competitors aren't facing the same thing. But you need to ask, are all things the same?
Yeah.
Anything you would add to that?
Yeah. I think the one thing I just want to put a cautionary tale with Google ads, with the networks and what's the third party networks that
Third-party data.
that they are working in.
Performance Max.
Yeah, some of these
Search partners.
Yeah,
Expanded search is what you're
expanded
asking.
search. Yeah. So if you have a campaign that's on that is going to think about like the ads you get when you play a game on your phone or those, we're seeing a lot of high volume traffic with low quality.
Very low quality.
And so I would just say off the bat, try to make sure you clean those up out of you'll see a lot of volume, but you'll also see, we started seeing bots filling out forms at a rate that we'd never seen before.
As much as 30 to 40% of traffic is completely fake.
And in a lot of the campaigns, these are going to be on by default. So you want to make sure
Google
that you
pulled a
pay
fast
attention
one
to
on you,
that.
folks.
Yeah.
I mean, we caught it for most of our clients pretty quickly. I mean, within a month.
Yeah.
But Google pulled a fast one on the world. And anybody who was just going along and just taking Google's recommendations, and in some cases, Google just turned on features that they or greatly expanded features that you had originally agreed to, and started giving you a lot more bogus traffic.
Yep.
And probably what was happening is most digital folks were going, look at all the numbers. Your clicks are going up, and you're going, my phone ain't ringing.
Well, some of those were registering as leads.
Oh, yeah.
It was bot traffic. It was getting clicked on through and filling out a form, and it counted as leads, and it looked good.
Yes.
A higher volume of leads than we'd ever seen before, but our clients are saying, these people aren't answering the phone.
You know what we need to do is an episode on the questions you need to ask to hold your digital media accountable.
Yeah, we're off track, but let's get back into it.
Okay, so that was all in the assess the headwinds. If you think it's going to change, adjust your expectations. Doesn't mean you have to go home and tuck your tail. For heaven's sake, don't do that. Actually get excited, because you're the courageous one. You're the one listening to the Maven Marketing Podcast.
Hey, there you are.
You're the one sending questions to mavenmonday@frankandmaven.com. You were the one going, I'm going to be courageous while everybody else is fearful, and you're going to grab market share, but it's just going to be different in a lot of scenarios. Interest rates, economy, all that stuff. So first, we talked about identifying what it costs to get a new customer based on recent data. Second, we talked about assessing the headwinds, what you think you're about to go into, dead reckoning. Third, is your plan reasonable?
It's a good one.
We have this a lot. We have people who have great success in their business, and they're growing, and everything they touch is turning to gold because they've refined their vision, values, vows. They're putting out a very strong personality-based message. They're attracting these awesome customers. Their salespeople are having more success. That is a result of a Frank and Maven client who does it our way, right? And so inevitably they'll go, wow, I grew, by $1 million last year. I'm going to grow by 3 million this year. And we're going, okay, can't wait. But then we get to this, what does that mean? We kind of use some of the math we just shared to you. And while customer acquisition can get more efficient from a media perspective, you still have to use that basic math to set reasonable expectations year to year. And so we'll go, cool, you want to triple your amount of business and opportunities. Are you prepared to triple your ad budget? And they're like, well, that makes sense. And then we say, all right, your ad budget is $980,000. And they go, oh. And so what they realize is, maybe I'll grow a little slower. And it's not that we're trying to kick anybody's puppy, but we are saying it takes money to grow. And the faster you try to grow, generally the more money it takes in a shorter period of time. So don't fool yourself into thinking that all growth is linear. Don't ask, how do I triple the result? Ask, how do I stay healthy and hold on to what I have while refining and adding what I can afford to? Now, you will see private equity companies come in all the time and just try to cut cost and, cut out the fat and double down on this magic thing they bought. And then they try to make this a linear equation, and most of them fail in trying to grow faster. Now they might get more profit margins, but trying to double revenues because they gut the customer experience. And they gut the culture, and they gut the things that actually make companies grow. It's happening to so many people that I see, and some of them are even my friends in the industry that have either sold out or been part of a sellout company that sold out. And they're going, man, it happens specifically in the home improvement industry. So don't fool yourself into thinking it's all linear and you can just double. Anything you would add to that?
I think we're going to talk about this, but the different points of growth we talked about, the first 10% is probably the easiest 10% to get. So we're talking about market share. It's easier. That's the low hanging fruit. It's easier to make a dent in that initial set of customers. The second 10% will be a little bit harder, but that third 10%, it's going to be even harder.
Just think about a search engine page, for example.
Yeah.
Just by being one of the 10 people within reasonable placement on a search engine page, you're going to statistically get 1 out of 10 of those calls.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how cheap and fast and all that you are, you might get, a certain percentage of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have observed this over the years. My clients that start from 0 to, that 8 to 10%, fairly easy. I mean, all things considered, it's kind of like show up and you get the customer.
Yeah.
That's definitely true 0 to 5%.
Yeah.
That depending on how aggressive the market is and how competition is, getting to that 5 to 15, 20% is remarkably harder.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be on average just enough people that like to buy the way you're selling. That's you can just naturally win. But then to get past all that group of people that doesn't like to buy the way you're selling, either because you aren't priced a certain way, you could be priced too expensive, or more likely priced too cheap.
Yeah. I was going to say, in the early years, you're scrappy. That's probably why you got that 1 to 5%.
Yeah.
You kept it low, kept it tight.
The way, where your store is located, the way your brand, makes people feel, the way your receptionist answers the phone, the way your bathrooms smell, whatever is going to turn some people off. Certain number of people, up to a point, they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
The rest, you're going to have to start selling in a different way to get a different customer. And I'll use the example of there are some people. The Corvette is one of the most refined sports cars in the world right now. It on paper, it competes against even Ferraris and things that are 3, 4, 5 times the price. But there's a certain buyer that doesn't want a Corvette because it is an American-made car, and they want that snooty, German or luxury brand. And those people are silly. I don't know who would ever do that, but there's just, you got to sell a certain way and present and show up a certain way, and you have to understand you're either going to have to break past a certain market share. You're either going to have to expand different sales teams in your product to appeal to more people and change some things, or you're going to have to make a auxiliary brand around that.
Yeah.
My window guys, there's some people that just will not buy a vinyl window. You can tell them it's the most efficient. You can tell them it's the best for their money. You can tell them it looks the best, lasts the longest, operates the smoothest. And somebody's just going, no, I want
wood.
I want wood.
Yep.
I know it. I know it's an inferior product.
And it costs a lot more. Don't care.
But I just can't sit around and eat caviar and tell my friends that I got,
plastic
oak
windows,
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So think about that. So that this is part of the reasonable, expectations you're setting.
Yeah.
Small to medium sized markets, this is going to happen much sooner. Bigger markets, it's going to happen much later.
We have an example of a client we were just talking to this week. That is an internet service provider in a rural part of Arkansas. Actually,
Hi, Courtney.
Hi, Courtney. She's listening.
Yep.
We know she is.
Yep.
Shout out to you. They were wise enough to say that they know. So you think about that adoption curve, the early adopters all the way to the laggards. I'm usually a laggard. I think you're an early adopter. We're both ends of the scale here.
What'd you call me? What'd you say about my mama?
But they recognize that they've actually gotten through the beginning bulk, and their new customer goals for next year are smaller than they were for this year.
Yeah.
Because they acknowledge that if they got 4,000 this year, the next 4,000 is going to take twice as much work to get.
Yep.
And they know it because they're actually up in that 40% market saturation already in their area, and they have to go past that, and that's going to be harder, which is brilliant.
Yep. It's very astute, and it's just the truth.
It is the truth.
Right.
Yep.
It takes Apple tremendous amounts of effort to get the next 5% of iPhone, market share versus Android, versus when they blazed the trail and got like 50% of the world in a very small amount of time, right?
Yep.
So, in the tortoise and the hare, the tortoise always wins. The hare jumps up, runs himself out of energy, needs a nap, stops off, and has all kinds of bad things happen to him because of speed. And so I'm generally not a guy that just is pessimistic at ambition. I'm not saying curb your ambition, but I am saying timbre your energy down to reasonable, slow, momentous, sustainable forces in your decision making, and your all things involved. So maybe take that tortoise and the hare analogy and say, how does that apply? Am I the tortoise or the hare? Hi, Dee and Randy. I know you're listening. Burnout is a real thing. As you start running fast, the faster you grow, and I'm not saying don't grow with ambition. Sometimes you got to ride that bullet, but burnout, I've been there, and that robs you of your next best move you have to take.
Mm-hmm.
The faster you grow against the average, the more expensive it will be. The faster you try to improve the result, the more expensive it will be. That's okay at times. Just understand that expense is there and understand that you're going to have to cough that up. Most categories, last thing, most categories when it comes to being reasonable don't have instant customer acquisition. Unless you're selling cheeseburgers or toilet paper or gasoline or something like that, or cups of coffee. It's not what you did right now. It's what you did 90, 180 days, and maybe even 3 years ago that continues to work for you. So ask yourself, in my category, as it relates to the grand scheme of humanity, how many people are buying right now? Am I more like a cup of coffee, or am I more like a casket?
Yeah.
People buy once in a lifetime. I hate to say it, that's an awful example, but or am I more like, estate planning services? I might buy once or twice in my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, on a base level, even when you double the money in a short amount of time, you may not see twice the result in the same period of time because it takes that money time to mature. It's going to produce the result over 18 months, maybe more, instead of like the next 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So think about that. Anything you would add about being reasonable?
Nope. Just acknowledge it. Make sure you're willing to invest at the rate that you want to grow.
Yep. Okay.
And more, maybe.
So let's talk about taking that $680,000 we came up with earlier to reach this $10 million goal. Let's break that out into different media. What should I spend the money on? Now, there are a lot of episodes that Nate the Camera Guy is going to link to about how to allocate your budget, about should you be spending it on TV or radio or Google or where it should go. But generally, there's a relationship I want you to think about, and that is that the faster you get the business, the lower the quality of the customer is generally going to be. People who don't know who you are, or for that matter, anybody in your category, they are going to use Google as a research tool.
Yeah.
And they're going to look at you and 5 other goobers on the list and call the one who makes it the least amount of painful for them, which means is going to be cheaper, faster, or somehow guarantees something that you may or may not want to guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
When they already know who you are, when you've already connected with that human and ended up on their list, they're not using Google as a research tool. They're using it as a phone book. And they're typing in your name to the search engine.
Yes, please.
Isn't that a beautiful thing?
So good.
Nate the Camera Guy, would you rather have a customer here at Frank and Maven World Headquarters that calls and says, I need a video done. I need it this Friday because I've got a commercial I got to run for an event that's coming up? Or would you rather have somebody that says, man, I've been reading your books, I've been watching your podcast, and I just really like the way you said X, Y, and Z, and it made it so clear for me. And you guys are so helpful. And would you guys have some time to meet with me?
Definitely the latter.
Definitely the latter. Matter of fact, that's generally the way we take business these days. People that think long term. And it's not because it's all about money or something like that, but it's people that we know already want to buy in the way we sell.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about, I don't care if you're selling cars or you're selling candy bars or you're selling, attorney services or you're selling some home service or whatever it is, or medical providing, it is so much better. And all things get more efficient when they've heard about you. And not just heard about you, they've liked you and trusted you and built a relationship with you via your marketing long before that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, including Frank and Maven, has to say yes to a smaller, less ideal opportunity when it's early on. But the longer you mature and the longer you've had time and resources and money and patience to invest in that tomorrow customer, the better everything is going to get.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to get more efficient. It's going to get more frankly fun and rewarding and higher quality and just a bigger impact. What do you think you would say about that?
So I think what you're saying, though, is that the ratio of your budget actually kind of depends on the life cycle of your business itself. So in the early years, I've seen mostly that you will have to focus maybe more on today customers, because you need to pay the bills at the end of the month.
Yes.
You got to,
and there is a way to do that well.
You got to hit payroll. You got to do all that. But at the same time, you should be sowing a small amount of seeds along the way. That's that tomorrow customer.
Yes.
And then as that goes on, hopefully those seeds start growing. You see the fruit, the result of those tomorrow customers, and you can maybe relax on, I wouldn't say relax on your today customer, but it becomes a smaller percentage of your marketing budget as time goes on.
And practically that relates to, are you trying to chase people and do lead generation today and get them to say yes right now? Or are you taking a little more time saying, one day when you need us, we're here, and here's the reasons you should buy us. And that would be done with more mass media.
Yeah.
If you're a localized or regionalized business, you're going to have a better luck with TV, radio, billboards, and maybe some local print. If you are a online or transactional business that serves customers in a larger geography, but kind of a more specific interest base, that will have to be some sort of digital media, but you can also target it in a way that's not that's building a brand and that like trust factor, not just direct response call to action.
Yep.
I'm not making a big bad wolf out of either one of those, but I am saying I've met with thousands of business owners, and I've been behind the curtains in hundreds, if not thousands, of businesses. And the thing that the entrepreneur actually wants, and the life that is rich and beautiful inside a business, is when people are buying you for the reasons you like to be selling.
Yes.
They value you for you and the things you stand for, the values and vows that your product delivers, and they show up willing to do it your way, which you know is the right way and the way you want to do it because of your expertise. And so we've been interviewing some folks on this podcast, and we are picking some of our favorites that have just been phenomenally successful, taking little tiny businesses and making them rich, awesome businesses. And that's the commonality. They have believed in that. So when it comes time to say budget allocation, by all means, pay your bills. By all means, feed your family. But with as much today transactional minded media and messaging that you have to do, but always be taking a little sliver of that. This guy that's at 10 million right now, probably a little after $1 million in sales, had to or didn't have to, but made the choice to say, you know what, I can survive off of the lifestyle and the security that this recurring set of customers that I've earned through today marketing has happened. I'm going to start, maybe go backwards one step seemingly, or take a little slower step to getting the next wave of customers, which is going to be a snowball.
Yeah.
And he invested heavily in television and radio marketing. And now he lives, to be honest, these numbers are from his company like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It would be the same kind of math today, but he lives an incredible life now. And I actually can think of 3 or 4 guys that are just like him, but the one I'm thinking of, and gals, by the way. So, just think about that. Try to win the customers over longer before the finish line as you start to expand. And I think you'll have that result too. Every time I've seen that happen, that is the result that my friends get. Last thing, relevance and repetition. Are your ads as convincing as they can be? Because just like we talked about, maybe your market factors are different. You can improve the results by making your copy better, by being more empathetic, by being more entertaining, by being more sticky, by being more helpful. And you can make your ads, the leverage factor on the return on your marketing, so much better just by the words you use.
Yeah. We've done a few episodes on on your message overall, and even offering them a better reasonable next step. So we talked about like a get a price calculator. Sometimes that's what people want.
Yep.
They just I don't even have a fathom whether this is $1,000 or $10,000.
We talk about this in chapter 9 of the book.
Yeah.
We have a set of clients that we increased results by 400% by changing 3 words on a website.
Yep.
You'll have to read chapter 9 and see what that's all about, but it's the get a price calculator Caleb's talking about.
Yes.
Repetition is the other factor. So relevance, get more in line with what are the needs, pains, hopes, and fears of the person you're trying to win over.
Yeah.
How does your product satisfy that? And what's the reasonable next step? Focus on that. But repetition, there's a very, 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 very small percentage of people probably buying what you do today, unless you're cheeseburgers or toilet paper or coffee, right?
Yep.
So it takes extra exposures to build that snowball so that one day they've heard of you and thought of you and been face-to-face with who you are 194 times. And when they go, oh, shoot, I need shingles, they go, boom, calling Joey. Right?
Yep. That's it.
We had somebody reach out to us a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, radio doesn't work. And we're like, oh, really? We've made millions of dollars with radio. Tell us what you did.
Yeah.
Well, ran it 2 weeks and didn't get a single phone call. And it's for like some medical service. And that, unfortunately, that's the person who brought her to radio perpetuated this false reality, probably just to
get the sale,
meet the sales goal. And,
you
know, God bless them because they've got to eat too. But rather than create reasonable expectations, it takes repetition.
It does.
It takes repetition.
It does.
We merged sections 4 and 5 there, but we went through the cost of a new customer, so getting real about customer acquisition. We went through assessing the headwinds using that kind of art versus science. We went through, is my plan reasonable? We went through choosing different media, and then we went through relevance, repetition, and thinking about the long-term factors of business growth, that it's not just do something today and get something today. The better result is probably invest, court, build a relationship with the customer so that there's a bunch of increasing amount of customers coming to you for the long term.
Yeah.
What have I left out in this hour and 80-minute episode?
Oh my goodness. No, it's just plant those seeds as soon as you can. Set aside a reasonable. We could talk to you about what that would be. It really depends on where you are, what you're trying to do. But if you can set aside that tomorrow money and not expect to see it come back for 6 months or maybe 12 months,
searching your name instead of your competitors.
You will watch it pay off. It's not something you can measure directly on a spreadsheet. It's not something you can say, put this in, got customer out. You will feel it though. I promise you.
I'm thinking of 3 examples. One is that a gentleman did this, and 3 years in, he was growing 4 times faster than he'd ever grown in 10 years.
Wow.
Thinking of another one who's actually way more retail oriented, and it took them 50 years to build a $10 million company. Maybe just slightly less than that. In the 3 years since, they're at 13, 14 million.
Awesome.
By investing in that tomorrow customer.
Let's think about, this is an unusual circumstance, but Greg, our buddy Greg,
Hey, Greg,
is seeing a record year this year, and he started this year. Kind of not usually what we promise. We usually say to wait, but there are circumstances where it also just shows up.
Yes.
He started in January before his season started, and
home improvement guy.
He's an home improvement, and he got those seeds planted, and he was able to see a big harvest even before the year.
He's also
was out.
way more likable than most people in his category, and so when people see him on TV, he and his wife, let's be honest, they're both on the commercials.
Yeah,
kind of like Randy and D. They're our next Randy and D. Last example, we had a client for various circumstances. Some of this isn't their fault. Actually, all of it's not their fault, but they had to make some shifts operationally, and they took a really well-branded company that had been building this snowball we're talking about, and they were spending about $150,000 in broadcast to do that. TV and radio.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to pull out this year and had about a $600,000 loss in their business. Moreover, it took 6 months for them to see that because they were coasting on the result they built, which actually really makes the point even greater. But it's harder for their salespeople to close. They've had some losses in efficiency in online media. So people aren't Googling their name.
Yeah.
They're back to like choosing them against, there's 7 or 8 competitors on the list. And so, guys, every single time when you're putting those seeds in the ground, try to think long term. Try to think that 3 to 5 years into your strategy, but make it a reasonable, science-based start to your budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done a lot of episodes on planning for 2024. I hope they're helping you. I'm going to throw this out there. We have a couple of slots in January. We're booked up for the rest of the year. We have a couple of slots in January where if you want to bring your company in and have us help you plan out a year for success, and more importantly, a 3, 5, and 10-year success plan for your business, send us an email to mavenmonday@frankandmaven.com. Megan will follow up with you, kind of tell you what that all looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're wanting to grow and you're going, I want my life to be better and more enriching, and I want my culture and I want my people to perform better, and I want work to be fun, a lot of it starts with this values-based, methodical marketing that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we would love to talk to you more about that. So thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please hit that subscribe button. Please forward this to all your friends who you might be able to help with this information. And send us your questions to mavenmonday@frankandmaven.com. We'll be back here every Monday answering your real-life marketing advertising questions, because marketers who can't teach you why
Or just fancy lie.
have a great week.